Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn webinar, turning ERP challenges into opportunities. We've asked two of our ISV partners to join us today, riteSOFT and InsightSoftware, so thank you so much to them. First, I just wanted to hear from our founder and president of Crawford Software, Steve Carr, so I'm going to pass it off to him. Steve?
Thank you, Erica, and good morning, everyone. I first want to say thank you to everybody for attending today. Really appreciate it. I don't intend on boring you with PowerPoint to death. We'll just do a little overview very quickly. So, Erica, if you want to move to the next slide. Just for those that aren't familiar with Crawford Software, so we were founded in 2001. We've been a CISPRO partner for the last 8 years. We have approximately 45 employees. And working with CISPRO, we're doing everything from new implementations, usage review, business process review and improvement, support, functional development, and systems consulting, including SQL performance tuning and everything like that we can take care of there. And we are an elite solutions partner right now with CISPRO. Hope to maintain that for the years to go ahead. Go to the next slide. Why Crawford Software? So we have about 20 years of manufacturing software experience, and that's across every type of discipline, from making little vacuum actuators all the way up to full-blown medical instruments, MRI machines. We've worked with people like Siemens, Smith & Nephew, down to little companies in Norwalk, Connecticut that make very small 13 people manufacturing items. We have a project methodology that's our own. It's a combination of CISPRO's methodology and things we've done over the years. People that have worked with us, we've always seen that, and we'd be happy to walk you through it, where we make sure we put everything out and available with a clear project timeline, clear definable goals, and then adjust that scale accordingly to what your team members are able to provide. That's usually the biggest problem we have with an ERP implementation or a project, is everyone has a full-time job already, and we want to be able to scale both how much work we take on versus your team versus the expectation of how many hours that they're involved with the project to be able to do that. Some of the other things that we're doing, and you might have seen some of these on LinkedIn or some of the other media events that Erica and Sydney have been working on. We have our own standard solutions for CISPRO. The current one that we're talking about is Crawford Connect, which combines EDI functionality in a EDI more friendly environment, if I can. Things like a supplier portal that lets your suppliers engage with you and make it more of a self-service for them, saving you time, saving you cost. You're not getting these emails that you have to follow up. You're not reaching out to them for confirmations, advanced shipping notifications, and things like that. Again, things that we'd be happy to walk through and show you at some point if you'd like to see. And the last thing is we make sure to do all of our product development and all of our testing for our projects on internal servers. So we have everything from CISPRO 6 through CISPRO 8, the most current release, from running on internal servers. And we test and develop here before we work on your system to make sure that it's as bulletproof as it can be, and it's a clean setup and installation for you for anything that we do. All right, move to the next slide. So today, what you'll be learning, you're going to have some wonderful presentations from both InsightSoftware and riteSOFT. There's going to be some practical takeaways from this on basically overcoming reporting data challenges, evaluating your warehouse needs, how we can maximize efficiency. We've been working with riteSOFT and the team for a very long time, and it's a very, very easy implementation and an effective way to improve accuracy and move through and just overall improve the way your warehouse functions and the accuracy of your inventory and your other data. And now she threw me off. Well, last thing that I'd want to mention in the PowerPoint portion of this is we would appreciate feedback from everyone that's attending. We want to move these into a more regular series, at least once a month, both virtually and in person. So we'd really like to encourage everyone that's attending or those that watch it afterwards in the webinar that'll be released on the recording, give us some feedback. What are some topics that you'd like us to discuss? Would you like us to do more things, a little bit more detailed how to? and ways to work with SysPro, how to improve. You're basically working with SysPro, the accuracy of the data, and making that software work better for you to improve your overall business. And with that, I'm going to say thank you and not, as I said, bore you to death with PowerPoint, and I'll turn it over to Garrett.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate everybody being here today. I'll pull up my screen. We'll go through what riteSOFT ultimately has to offer today for our piece of the pie. So today we're going to be covering, one of the reasons as to why do we want to evaluate our warehouse, and some of the questions that we're going to be able to ask is to how do I get from point A to point B, from either nothing to something with a WMS software, right? You've gone through a lot of work today with the SysPro implementation, and now how do we take that next step? And a lot of times when we're working with the Crawford team and identifying where's a specific customer coming from within their environment, and how do we take that next step? So just a little bit about riteSOFT in itself. riteSOFT has been around in the SysPro space for about 20 years now, and we are a certified global ISV partner with SysPro. So we do have a very tight relationship with SysPro and the Crawford team as a whole, where even in the last few projects working with Steve and the Crawford team, being able to allow Crawford to really run with the solution and be that point of contact for you guys as you guys continue to go and grow with the solution. But we bring that other side of the business, that expertise in how does it operate with SysPro? How do we see it from a different perspective of WMS, as we do have that experience there? One of the biggest things we focus on developing for that customer base is that simple plug and play solution. Now, building those standard processes within your organization to ultimately help you scale. And for those that don't know me, my name's Garrett. I run sales here at riteSOFT. So if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as we go through today's session. We'll be able to answer them later. Now we're going to go through the basic whys. Why should I evaluate my warehouse? What issues am I having out there on the floor, or from a technology perspective that just might be holding me back from being able to scale properly, or holding me back from that growth that we are expecting within our environment? With that, we'll cover some of the key questions that you should be asking from your team, from just the warehouse perspective and from a technology perspective, to help uncover where should I ultimately be starting first. Then we'll jump into a live demo based off of a customer story so you can see the solution in action. And then obviously we'll open it up to Q&A towards the end if you do have questions. So one of the biggest things as to why do you evaluate your warehouse? And this is coming from all of the different customers that we have worked with over the years, is everyone's trying to identify some of those inefficiencies and those bottlenecks that they have within their environment. Is that from a physical aspect, with how the layout of the warehouse is? Are we missing things that are labeled? Are we missing things that are identified? What inefficiencies are we experiencing? And all of this is to solve some of those key business challenges that you might experience. We have rising costs right now as things are happening in the market, with goods, supply chain. And then we're also fighting a labor skills gap with different employees that might not be so technologically advanced, or it's harder to source good employees. So how do we fix those within your environment so they're not as big of a challenge for your organization? Which then flows into, well, we're going to be looking at manual processes. I'm getting inventory errors. Well, how do I solve that problem? One of the biggest things that I hear most commonly is going to be that my physical inventory is different compared to what SysPro is telling me. How do I get those two to be more aligned so that way there's less confusion out there on the warehouse floor? And then it really flows into the preparing for that growth, right? We all as business leaders want to make sure our business is growing in the right direction. So how do we prepare for that and properly scale? So that way, when that growth does happen or continues to happen, we're prepared and ready for it. And then there's lack of visibility in a lot of environments. So how do you uncover that information for you to help make more effective decisions with what's ultimately happening? So if I go through this, feel free to take a picture of the slides, use these questions internally to start asking your team members, where are we at? So from a warehouse perspective, some of the key questions that I'm going to ask anybody through this process is, one of the biggest ones that means is, does my physical environment match my digital system? So if you're a multiple bin organization, are my bins appropriately labeled out there on the floor? Do I have a map of that warehouse to see, okay, here's my bin location, here's that bin location within SysPro? Do those two things align? So it comes to labeling. Do I have proper signage within that environment to clearly identify to me as the employee out there, what are we seeing? Where am I supposed to be putting this product without having to call somebody in the office to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, where am I going? And it's even just the general layout, right? So as you go through a layout, am I making it as efficient as possible for my users to do their daily tasks? Is that doing a put away movement? Is that for order picking? How far within my environment are they having to walk to get different products? Can I realign my warehouse and reorganize it to where I have my higher volume items in a unique area, so they're constantly in the same area, and manage my overstock that's going to be, at the top of the racking? Different areas to make sure that we are as efficient as possible from a warehouse layout perspective. Now, all this is going to be a little bit different based off the size and scale of that warehouse, but the tried and true practices all remain the same. So once you're going through the warehouse process, the physical piece to it, and then it comes to the people that are within the warehouse. So we're looking at, okay, what are my employees doing on that day-to-day life with inventory, and how can we make that easier? So it's asking them, what and where do they spend most of their time today? Is it that process of just finding inventory? Do they walk around with that piece of paper in their environment where they're going to ask and say, well, I can't find this. I don't have any good information to tell me where this is. Are they constantly walking around from site to site? Like when picking a sales order, are they moving from bin A, moving all the way to bin Z, and then walking back to bin B? Do they not have an optimal pick path within their environment? One of the biggest things that I find is, sit out in your environment, watch the employees work for 5-10 minutes at a time between shifts, and just start to see how much are they handling paper. What are they doing with that piece of paper within their environment to say, okay, this could be more efficient? They're handwriting things down on that piece of paper, turning it in, and that's where we could be seeing a data entry mistake that might come up from the floor up into the office. So if some of these things are questions to ask the employee, because the employee is really the one that drives the project, right? If you can't get the employee to buy into what they're exactly doing, then that will hinge on the success of this system ultimately getting implemented and you seeing that success with that growth. Once we've uncovered the warehouse and the employee, it moves to the technology that you're using. So some of the key questions from a technology perspective is, one, we're using SysPro today, which is great, but how are we using SysPro today? Because every organization is going to be a little bit different. So do we have those standard operating procedures already documented to say, I can go into a conversation with the Crawford team to say, this is exactly what I'm doing in SysPro. Here's the mistakes or the challenges that I'm experiencing. And do we have another solution that can help solve this problem? When it comes to an inventory perspective, are we tracking it real time? Is there not a piece of software in there today where it is making us do that manual entry back into SysPro? And it's starting to look at the ancillary tools, the hardware that you might be using. How do we have hardware stationed throughout that environment? Do we have PCs? Is it tablets? Do we have any handheld devices, maybe from a pre-existing solution? And what are those key pieces? Now, one thing that doesn't always get covered a lot is your current IT infrastructure, right? So are we in a cloud environment? How is that going to affect an installation or an implementation of this? Are we local, but do we not have good wireless infrastructure to be able to support a project like this? So these are some of the key things that we have to ask up front and understand about our current infrastructure to be able to understand where do we ultimately need to go, because this will help guide you into I should likely get wireless into my warehouse first before I do any step with any additional solution to be able to see some of those benefits. Because if you don't have wireless, you can't really do anything else from a technology standpoint. So ask those questions, more of the IT side, understand what's going on. Then it comes to some of the roadblocks, right? There's always going to be roadblocks in a project. As much as you might think that it's going to be, rainbows and butterflies and kittens all the time, there's always something that comes up. So being able to ask some of these questions up front to start uncovering, do we have certain employees that are going to be a challenge with implementing a solution? How do we get them up to speed and comfortable with implementing a software right off the bat? Get their buy-in to this. What are some of the biggest gaps that we're seeing today? Do we have those gaps documented? Is that gap in receiving? Is that within order picking? Is that going to be within just general WIP? So understanding exactly where we have some of those gaps and what we're trying to solve. Going into this with a clear plan is going to help communicate to the team members that are working with you throughout this project that we're going to experience this in this area. And it might be a warehouse gap because we don't have something in place. It might be an employee gap, and it's going to be a technology gap. So uncovering everything up front is going to help set the stage for this project ultimately to be successful. So rolling into a customer story. This is a customer that we acquired over a couple of years ago, and they're a large beverage manufacturer. So one of their challenges, and this ties back to looking at the questions that we did ask, is their warehouse layout. It's a very large warehouse, and they went through this process. They didn't have anything in place today. So they didn't have labels or product labels, bin location labels, to be able to clearly identify where is the inventory existing. And they had such a high volume of product that's moving from location to location throughout the given day. And so from a technology perspective, they were still doing that transaction on paper, recording it on a bin transfer sheet that would get submitted at certain points of the day, 2, 3 o'clock, and then the next shift and the next shift and the next shift. So somebody in SysPro is having to sit down at a desk, enter those transactions. But their key challenge is with the volume that's moving and you're manually entering that into SysPro, likely that product moved from location A to location B and from B to C before location A to B was transacted against within SysPro. So already you're experiencing an immediate inventory discrepancy between where we're seeing inventory that exists within what locations. So that's giving them a massive challenge to help properly plan how much inventory and where does it exist. So we can't plan for WIP, and we also can't plan for our orders. So getting our orders out in an appropriate time. So one thing that they did is they're actually using a fairly new module within RiteScan called Tasks. And Task is giving them the ability to be able to assign specific functions to a user. Because from an employee standpoint, they were struggling with, well, does an employee just go and do it? How do they know what they should be doing? So they wanted to give that employee direction as to where are they pulling the product from and where are they bringing the product to. And this covers everything from doing my receiving put away process to inventory, transferring it from a warehouse to a new warehouse, picking it for a sales order, helping them guide them through that whole process of what exactly should that employee do. So we're going to demo based off of this customer scenario. So I'll bring up my demo screen here. And this is RiteScan. So RiteScan, we're going to be doing this on a handheld device because that's the most common deployment for anybody to be transacting against inventory out there on the floor. So we're going to log in, right? Everything that I'm going to be doing is 100% real time. So we've got our transactions here. This is what I'm seeing as optional modules that I can go and perform. But we're going to use my nav menu here on the left-hand side, and we're going to go down to something that we call tasks. So this tasks is giving me my work to list. It's telling me here are the sequence of things that I should be doing it in based off of a priority. So for this scenario, I've got high, medium, and low. And the story is I've received product in. We're going to have to put that product away into its inventory location. We're going to have to transfer it from my receiving warehouse to a finished goods warehouse. And then we're going to pick that sales order or that product for that sales order to fulfill it for that customer. So working it all the way through. Now, this is, again, one of the areas from a technology standpoint that we should be asking questions is, what handheld device is going to fit best in my user's hands? Because that's a big thing. Are they comfortable with that type of device? Is it too large? Is it too small? Is it not safe for dropping it on a concrete floor, right? So the first thing that's assigned to me is to do my put away. So based off my priority, I'm going to select my put away. Now it's giving me a description of exactly what I, as the user, should be performing. So I'm doing a transfer from warehouse end, bin end of this stock code with this quantity to this new location. Now, if I, as the user, start this, I can flag it as an issue in case I see that there's something wrong. For an instance that I don't have inventory of that stock code that exists in that location, or I don't have enough inventory for me to be able to do that. And this is going to help me validate across the board what I'm doing. So it brings me into the bin transfer module for me to perform that transaction. So I'm going to go into the receiving staging area. I'm going to scan the bin location that I'm pulling my product from. I'm going to scan my stock code. So we'll scan our stock code here. And now I had A112 that was listed. And I'm going to enter a stock code that's not particularly on this task. So when I scan the wrong stock code to fulfill this, it gives me an invalid stock code. So that's just validating to make sure that I am, as the employee, am doing the proper transaction with the proper stock. So when I enter that proper stock code, it allows me to continue through. So we're going to apply our quantity here. And now we're going to go physically carry this product to that new bin location, scan the new bin location, which is going to be N1, and we're going to post. Now, once I post, there's some warning messages just to help guide the user on if they're doing the appropriate transaction. Like this one says that there's a stock take. It's validating that somebody's counting this inventory somewhere else. We're just going to hit yes, and that's going to post, and it brings me right back to my work to list for tasks. So the next thing is we got inventory. Maybe the next employee comes in. We're going to move this product from this next warehouse. So the same process applies. So we're going to take it from N1, same stock code. We're moving this to our finished goods warehouse. We're going to take our quantity of 100, bring it to warehouse FG, bin FG, which is now ready to pick, and post. Same stock take message. Again, constant feedback to me as the employee that I'm doing the appropriate transaction and that this is working and updating SysPro in real time. Now, the last thing is we've moved all this inventory. It's existing in our finished goods. I can now properly pick this sales order. So for me as the employee, I'm coming in to pick sales order 1817. So again, gives you my details of what I should be picking. We'll proceed. And this will bring me directly to that line for me to go through and pick that inventory. So we'll pick our quantity of 100 to fulfill the sales order, apply our bin location, hit pick successful, brings me back down to my task list. And now I'm complete for my tasks and I can go and do whatever else that I need to do. Now, some might ask, well, how do I create the tasks? And it's going to be based off of a variety of different methods that somebody as an organization might create a task. A lot of times is putaways is the most common use case for this, or replenishments. So being able to move that inventory. A very common thing that somebody might do is going to be just creating a report within SysPro for monitoring your min-max levels for your bin locations for that stock. So that way, when you're reporting from it from a SysPro standpoint, and you're saying, okay, we're close to our min level for that stock here, we're going to make sure we create a task. We need to do that replenishment, tells the user directly, hey, go move this product from here to here. So that way we're appropriately managing that inventory as necessary. And that brings us back out. And if there's something more that you guys would like to see, obviously contact the Crawford team and we'll be able to give you a more full-scale demo of how this might work within your specific environment.
Give you a couple, Mr. Garrett, a couple of points just to add to it. I know I'm interrupting, Eric. I apologize, but a couple of things just to highlight. Another thing that we can do too is we will bring equipment out. So you were mentioning making sure the customer's environment is ready. So we have scanners here, we have printers here. We're more than happy to bring those out and do, I wouldn't call it a full site evaluation, but we can tell, can we read your barcodes that are on the 4th level of that rack shelf and go ahead and be able to scan it, readable, have it come up, does it connect to SysPro, things like that. And the other one I wanted to mention, you mentioned how a lot of customers, they still use the paper traveler, they fill it out and it gets entered tomorrow morning. When that person gets to it, hopefully it's the first thing they do. Just to remind everyone that that impacts a lot more than just your inventory accuracy. It impacts anything you're using as far as MRP and processing, because MRP ran overnight. So you've not only moved all that inventory if you're not doing it real time, but if you've done some other things and scrapped inventory or anything like that, or done receipts and not recorded them, you're getting to a point where the MRP results are not really as accurate as they could be, because one, they don't know exactly where everything is, and it may have gone to a quality bin to be inspected or something like that. Or two, you've scrapped some or shipped some that you didn't record until the next day. And that's the whole idea of using scanners, handhelds, barcoding. Everything's real time, quick, and accurate. So when MRP does process and then PO suggestions are generated, it's as real as it can be and has the most accurate information. Of course, human error intervening. But we try to limit that with being able to scan and go through that. So sorry, Garrett, I just want to bring that up.
No, man, you're the expert, so I appreciate the
I don't know
foresight
about
to
that,
it.
but
No, it's good. It's good. So a couple other examples of, where other customers will come in and do this automation. It is a holistic approach, right? If you're touching inventory, you should be transacting against it. If I physically do something, I systematically should do something with that inventory. So it keeps it real time. So a couple examples is that order picking, right? How do we appropriately pick our orders so that way we're validating that we pick the correct stock? We don't send something to a customer that is incorrect, because we all know that that's just a hassle. Everybody hates it when you get the wrong product from Amazon. So how do you think another customer would feel? So order picking is a very big one, and it's a great place to ultimately start. And some of the additional ones to gain that additional information is pallet tracking. So leveraging license plates or pallet IDs to be able to get that next level of granularity into the movements and picking and width of a product, and bringing it up to a more holistic level of, I got a whole pallet of product that's getting picked for an order instead of just a singular stock item. And then moving to like dashboards, being able to take all the information that's collected from these transactions, and however you want to create the dashboards or those reports, whether if it's an embedded analytics, a BI software, however it might be, I want to be able to give that information so I can make effective decisions based off of what the employees are doing. Track the labor. We're looking to make sure we have updated costs against a job that's in production. So how do we be able to get that actual time spent into SysPro appropriately, so that way we're not blowing WIP out of the water? Now, there's one thing you might note. There is a barcode. Funny, I know. Scan the barcode. It does download a PDF document that covers a lot of the questions that we covered earlier today. And it gives you essentially like a work to list itself to say, are we ready for something like this? What things do I need to prepare for in case of a project like this coming into our fold for 2025 and 2026? So it's a really good document. Scan that QR code, download it. It might be worth your time. And if there is any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We can answer them, or obviously we can set up a separate time later to go through those as well. So just 1 second. Any questions? All right. Again, feel free, if there's any questions, reach out to Steve and the team, and they'll be able to help answer any questions that you might have that do come up as you sit and digest this throughout today. And we look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Thanks, Garrett. And I'll give one more second as well. If anybody has any questions, feel free to put it in the chat in the Q&A section. And then as we move forward, if anything pops up, just enter it right in there and we'll definitely address it. If we can't get to it this webinar, then we will certainly reach back out to you afterwards. But with that being said, again, thank you, Garrett. Really, really helpful. Really appreciate that. And I'm going to pass it on to Sue and Sierra.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. I'm going to wait for my slide to load here. Just give it 1 minute. Oh, apologies. All right. So today we're going to be talking about your reporting within SysPro. Supercharge your Excel reporting with live ERP data. Thank you all for your time today. I do want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Sue Maloney. So my name is Sierra. I'm an ERP channel manager. And what that title means is that I work closely with SysPro and our SysPro partners to provide solutions that enhance SysPro's capabilities. And alongside me, I have Sue Maloney, our solutions engineer. I love bragging on Sue because she's been in your shoes once upon a time as a previous controller and director of finance with 20 years of experience. So really excited to have somebody who truly understands the frustrations of reporting, be able to demonstrate what we perceive as a solution. So a little bit about InsightSoftware. Who is InsightSoftware? Well, we're a global company with connected solutions for the office of the CFO. And what do I mean by that? It means that we have a plethora of solutions in our portfolio, all designed to make your job easier, from budgeting and planning, equity management, lease management, currency exchange, tax compliance. Honestly, you name it, and we probably have it. But all of our products are really looking to just automate your processes and result in better data visibility, greater productivity, and more time spent on value-added tasks for your business. A little bit about the partnership that we have with SysPro. We have been a SysPro partner for over a decade, and we recently expanded our partnership to include global SysPro users. So an interesting fact that I like to mention is that SysPro is not only our partner, but they're also a customer of ours as well. So yeah, you heard that right. The director of finance at SysPro uses Spreadsheet Server, our product. So not only do they promote our product, but they also believe in it and use it themselves. And what we know to be true is that ERPs are great at housing data and much more, but when it comes to organizing, customizing reporting, it's just really tough for an ERP to fit the bill for every single organization. And that's where our partnership steps in, and what we want to talk about today, which is Spreadsheet Server, our financial and operational reporting tool. Automation in finance is no longer just a nice to have. It's really a strategic necessity. According to the U.S. Bank's 2024 CFO Insight reports, nearly 34% of finance executives say that automating manual data entry is top priority this year, largely due to rising concerns around risk and inefficiency. And 44% of finance teams say cutting costs and improving efficiency is among the top 3 objectives of theirs. This lines up perfectly with what Spreadsheet Server delivers. By automating key parts of the reporting process, customers benefit in a clear, repeatable cycle. Time saved by eliminating manual data dumps and repetitive processes, reduced errors from copy and paste mistakes, human error, and version control issues, free up time for analysis, what really matters within the business, giving finance teams the bandwidth to focus on those insights and not just data wrangling. Make better decisions with accuracy, timely, trusted data. So what we're looking at here, what we want to do is to move you over from the left-hand side, those pain points of manual reporting, over to the right-hand side, what we consider modern reporting. So let's take a look over there at the manual side. We often hear teams are struggling with poor visibility. Key insights are buried in spreadsheets. They're outdated data because, let's be honest, the moment you export data into Excel, it's already old. And then let's think about the time it takes to clean that data, format the data, manipulate it into something that's presentable. Then it's even older, right? We also see static forecasting using fixed data snapshots instead of dynamic responsive models. All of this is made worse by time-consuming manual processes that keep teams stuck in the weeds instead of focusing on strategic work. Now compare that to the right-hand side. This is what we consider modern reporting. This is what where we want to get you and what we provide, where your systems are integrated, your data is in real time, and your workflows are automated so that your team can focus on analysis and decision-making, not just cobbling data together. It's about making reporting faster. It's about making it smarter, more trusted, more impactful. Now, enough about all of the problems. What's the solution, right? Our tool spreadsheet server is an Excel add-in. It sits at the ribbon of your workbook and it connects you directly to SysPro with access to real-time data. That way you don't have to manually export data from SysPro into Excel. It means that you can easily build both standard and customized reports all within Excel. And unlike Crystal reports, you don't need to know SQL. It's very user-friendly. Once you create a report once, it's just a matter of refreshing that report and pulling in the most up-to-date information. Additionally, it does provide drill down capabilities where you can click down and see all the way down to the transactional level details. What we know is that financial professionals prefer to be in Excel. That's where you're most comfortable. And what's great about this is we're not proposing that you learn a whole new system. No, this is all done within Excel. It's essentially just enhancing and automating the processes that you're already doing today. Here's a little bit of a visual of some of those key points with Spreadsheet Server, how it connects seamlessly with your SysPro data, how you can easily create and customize reports. We also have a module for you to schedule and distribute reports. It's called our Distribution Manager, and we will highlight that. And we also do have 30 plus templates that are pre-built for SysPro. So these templates are specifically designed for SysPro's audience in mind. So these reports are ones that we've found to be helpful for our manufacturing and distribution industries. And these are not canned reports, but rather templates. So what that means is you can map these to your instance and then you can modify them to include additional details or exclude something you don't like. What I really want you to see here is that this is a great place to start so that you know from day one you're already building with a foundation. All right, enough of me talking. What you really want is to see it in action. So I'm going to pass it over to Sue.
Super. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so let's just expand a little bit on some of the things that Sierra already talked about. We are using an add-in to Excel, and you can see my ribbon up here at the top of my screen. Everything else about my Excel is just like everybody else's. I just have this extra component to be able to design, refresh, and drill into the reports that I need from SysPro. We have formulas in Excel that are grabbing the information from SysPro in an automated way, so we don't have to really go through a lot of effort to make that happen. We can use some of these templates that Sarah mentioned, or you can take what you've already built in Excel. If you've spent some time designing something, we can use that as a template and bring our formulas in, just as easy. Once you get the formulas in place, the idea behind the product is that we want to give you access to your information quickly and easily. So as I look at my report here, if I want to go move on to the next month, I just simply change a parameter to refresh my data. I don't have to go through and run a report in SysPro, export it to Excel, remanipulate. Everything is pulling directly from SysPro in the format that we choose. With these formulas, in addition to being able to refresh the data, we can filter the data based on whatever component you want. I can adjust for my division code and see the different values, or I can bring them all together and show all my divisions combined. I can choose any of these balances. You can see my formula in the formula bar. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But with that formula, I can also click the drill down button to learn more about my activity. That brings a panel up in Excel that shows me a bit more detail. The first level of detail is just the different balances that make up the total. So in this case, for the 128,928 for period 4, my year-to-date balance is looking at account 6050. And I can just see I have the one line item. Now I can take this line item and drill out to my journal details next, or my transaction details. Let me get down to SysPro. And when I click on the SysPro transactions, I can now see the detail from that balance. In this case, I did pull a year-to-date balance, and so I can see 4 months worth of detail, all journal entries that were created. So these are just standard general journals. Now, if these entries had come from a subledger, let's say accounts payable invoices had been processed and brought into the general ledger by way of a journal, I'd have more information I could capture through the use of queries. I could choose a line item and drill out to my accounts payable subledger. I could drill out to purchasing subledgers. I could drill out to images that are stored in the database. So I have a path that I can take depending on how that information appears in your system. If you want to go beyond the general ledger to go look at subledger information, that's an easily configured option through the use of queries. So we can path our way to different levels of detail depending on what you want to see. And it's all tied into these formulas. So when we build a formula, we use our little wizard button up here in the ribbon, and that just walks us through what we need for the specific information for the formula. And as I said, we can use a template that you've already created, or we can start from a blank worksheet and build out whatever we want, or you can use these pre-built templates and map them to your general ledger. All options. If we were to use a blank worksheet to get started, we just open that formula builder. We'll choose our GL balance formula, and we have different formula options you can see here on the screen. The top left side are the formulas we use for the general ledger. The bottom left-hand side shows query-based formulas, which is what we would use to go after data outside of the general ledger most often. And we'll talk about those here in a few minutes. With the general ledger, when you first open this screen, your GL definition will appear here. So I've got some choices to make, but my accounting definition is here that is pulling directly from my SysPro environment and the configuration I have. I'm going to go ahead and make some adjustments for my time frame here to say, let's go look at period to date information. I'm going to run out through period 4. It shows me options for my balance type. I can choose an actual balance, looking at what's happened to date. I can look at budget information alongside that as well. So we're going to start with actuals. And then as I look at my accounting definition, I can pick and choose how I want this displayed and also what I have displayed. So I'm going to use my company and division as filters on my column and get into my account codes. And in this case, I'm going to say, let's just go bring in all of our expenses. So I'm going to say 6-star, which will show me all of my accounts that start with 6 and bring those into the system. So got that all defined. Now, if I'm not sure what values I want, I can click on the little 3 dots here to the right of that value and see all of my definitions here in my list of values and search by name or number here with the little magnifying glass. So we've got some lookups you can use there as well. But for now, I'm just going to say, let's bring in all of those balances. I click insert to go bring that into my worksheet. So you can see there's my balance. It created that formula, and it's just referencing the information I need to go pull that balance from the tables. It's already configured to do that. I don't have to do any mapping behind the scenes. For the general ledger, that's all done for you based on your specific general ledger definition. So we can then copy paste this information, maybe go get a bit more, look at different periods. Maybe I want to go look at a year-to-date balance through period 6. I can just toggle over to YTD and I can copy that over. And we can go back a year if we want to go look at a variance to prior year. We could also change this to a budget value for the current year so we can compare either way. If you want to incorporate Excel calculations like a variance, just use a standard Excel to do that. We'll just do F11 minus G11 and show that variance. Now, each one of these cells has that drill down capability. So I can choose any, I can choose multiples, and I can click the drill down. I also have an expand feature, and the expand feature allows me, in this case, I've got expand GL row, which it takes this row and takes all of the details and brings them down into my worksheet. So I can copy or just bring those all in, automatically brings those in with all of the balances across the different timelines I've selected. And you can see there's balances in all of them, as well as that formula. So if I want to drill down, I can certainly do that here. Okay, I can see all of the different values, the variance formula copied down as well. Kind of highlights some differences that might look a little unusual. We can take a closer look at those. When we're done looking at the different rows, we can collapse that back up again and keep building. We can also use the expand segment button, which allows us to take the company and division codes or whatever we have up on the column and expand those across columns. So if you wanted to compare divisions for your year-to-date balance, we just click that expand segment and it'll add all the divisions. I'm going to keep building here and show you a few other examples as to how we can capture data. This is one way where we can use this partial mask. We really have a number of options. So let's just copy this formula down a couple rows. And maybe we choose to do a range of accounts. So I could say I'm going to include everything in this. Whoops, I hit my enter key by mistake. We'll just go get all of that, all of the 6s in a range instead. I can use that range and I can exclude a value out of that range. So I could say, let's just exclude everything that starts with 62. And we can go get that balance. Again, I have that drill down, so if I want to evaluate which accounts are included in that, where the balances are, I can use the drill down or the expand to see that. I can always go to my locate segment button and go look up my values. Let me switch gears to SysPro. Now, if I want to go select something from here, I'll just scroll on down to my 6s because I know I've got some activity down there, and I can, choose some options here. I'll just highlight a few of these, and I'm going to create a list and insert that into Excel. Now, I can always just type in a single value as well. So there's a number of choices. We have this all outlined in this workbook that we provide. So the helpful resources tab tells you what your syntax options are. Those are available to any of your account definitions. So whether it's my division groupings, my company groupings, my account codes, whatever you might want to use, you have these different options here. Okay, and then you would just continue to build out as you'd done in the past with any other Excel workbook. But knowing that, you can just simply come in here and move on to your different months as you go. You can even use Excel functionality to automate that a little further so you don't have to go in and type in those periods in each column. Pretty easy to work with to get ad hoc reports like this, so you can do some variance analysis, get into some details and reconciliations, but you can also take advantage of something you've already built. I'm going to show you just real quickly how you can take a static report and automate it. So in this case, you can see I just have numbers here in my current year actual, my prior year actual. I don't have any formulas. The only formulas I have are just basic Excel formulas. So if I wanted to automate this report, I would still use the formula builder to do that. And I would go ahead and fill in the values. So this is looking at November 2018. So it's year to date. We'll set this to year to date through November. And then I'm going to go ahead again and fill in my options here. Now, I know that that account code is actually one specific account, so I'm just going to put that account code right in there. And it happens to be revenue. That's what I'm working on, that merchandise sales first. So I am going to invert the sign to make sure it comes in without brackets. Lastly, I do not want to overwrite my existing template. I've already spent time making it look the way that I want, so I'm simply going to shift it. And as I do that then and click the insert button, it will go get that information and bring it into my worksheet for me. You can see there's the balance. It matches what's here. We can use the Excel functionality to round it up. And then we just drag and drop and replace that static cell with the formula. We can copy and paste the header information here, these parameters, onto the next column, copy and paste the formula, and then just change the values here to go back a year. So we can go back to 2017 and get that updated information. From here, we just continue to copy and paste down and fill in our accounts or groups of accounts that we need for each line item. When you're done doing that, it's just a matter of either grouping your information up here, so we move it out of the way, or you can use hide if that's your preference. And then we've got that automated report built out. So several options to get you on the path to getting your financial statements automated, either using those GL reports that we've created, which are listed here on the left-hand side. Those are all available, or creating your own, or converting what you've already built out. So lots of options for the general ledger. Very quick, time to value, easy to work with, using all of your Excel skills. So let's talk a little bit then about data outside of the general ledger. You can see these are the same reports that Sierra showed in the PowerPoint. I just have them structured a little differently here because I want to be able to click on the link and go right to them so I can see that information. Let's say we want to go look at this customer delivery performance report. If I click on that link, it'll just take me to the tab in my workbook that shows this information. Now, this is what I would consider an operational report or subledger report, looking at data outside of the general ledger. And in that case, we leverage queries to build those formulas rather than the general ledger. If I look at one of these values here on the top right-hand side, these are summarized values looking to a query. So I'm looking at this customer delivery performance query based on some parameters that are sitting here on the left-hand side, that those values are populating my totals as well as populating the details down below. Now, if I make a change in parameter, let's say I go on out here to, we'll just go on out to August. I'll update my totals. You can see those did update. My total price updated a bit here. And then if I click my run report button, it's going to go run the details down below. So I can see I've got a little bit more information down here, all displayed based on those formulas that we're using. So we've got a summary formula and a detail formula, both using that query to go get the data. For existing or for customers that want to take these on, we basically give you access to those queries. They will require a little bit of manipulation to make sure that you're capturing your information correctly and are tied to your database. And then you just make some manipulations here in the report layout to make them work for you. So in order to get the queries ready for you, you would use our query builder, this query designer. And this gives you access to all of the tables in your SysPro environment to leverage any field that you want, whether it's a standard field, a user-defined field, a custom field or table, and incorporate those into a report. So we start with Query Builder to go get that information. And you'll see here, I'm in my SysPro folder. I've got a number of queries here. Let's go look at that delivery performance query. I'll just open that up. And we can see a bit about how it was designed. Query Designer consists of 4 main components. The top left-hand side are the tables I'm using for the query. Bottom left-hand side has the fields from those tables that I'm using for the report, as well as those that I've defined as part of my parameters. And the parameters show up here on the far right. On the top right is a SQL statement. Now that SQL statement's necessary to run the reports, but fortunately for me, I don't need to know how to write it. I have this auto-generated box checked. You have options as users to build these queries. You can take what we've built and configure it to your database, which is a pretty simple task. You can copy and paste SQL or write SQL into this window to create a query. Or if you're like me, you go to the table list, go find your tables that you need, bring them together, and then start evaluating. Now, when I go to evaluate, I will often look at the table, right-click on this asterisk symbol to preview the field data. So it gives me some ideas as to what's in my table. This is all of the fields that exist in this table with a sampling of my data. So now I can see, okay, well, if I were to use document type, I have those two options, and that's what I want to make sure I use as a filter, for example. So I can bring that into my report and also use it as a filter. I can see all of those fields here as I continue to look across that particular table. And you can bring in whatever tables you need. You can see there's some joins here, so we'll often have those happen automatically. Occasionally you'll have to add your own or change the relationship here. Like you can see there's an arrow pointing to the detail table, and if I look at the properties on that, it'll tell you what that means. So this is an example of something you could benefit from right away, making sure we're leveraging your database, put in your date range that you want to use, and you can go ahead and just do a quick test on it. Now, if I wanted to go add, let's say we add that document type. I don't know that that's in here. It's not. So let's go ahead and just double click on it. We'll bring it down here as a value. And if I wanted to set that as a filter, I just right click and say add that as a parameter. Now I could say I just want to see document types that are equal to B. And if I do a test query on that, I don't have any in that date range. So let's open this up a little bit. We'll go out to maybe August and see what kind of values we have there. Now I've got all sorts. Okay, so now I can see that I'm looking at those document types that are equal to B. You can do that with any field. You can leverage any field as a parameter. You can also set up your own calculated fields within the report. So the total price, for example, isn't a field that I can get pulled from a table, so I've created my own here. And then I can sum that up so I can use that in my reports. And we can do all sorts of things like that, whether it's simple multiplication like this, or we're using a calculation to create a percentage, all sorts of options there. And so once we get this defined and we save it to a folder, then we go into Excel to build out that report. And again, we use the formula builder, and I'll just show you a quick example or what that looks like. Instead of choosing the GL formulas, we choose the query formulas, either a summary option or the detail. And we pick our query and start building. So I'll just do this real quick because I know I got to watch my time here. I'll go to my formula builder. We go browse out to those same folders I showed you in the query builder, and we pick the query that we want. So I'll go get that customer delivery performance. I fill in my parameters. So like I said, I'm going to go out here a little ways and get a little more data. Maybe we don't go quite that far. Maybe we go to March. And then I can decide how I want it displayed. I like to use tables, and that keeps it nice and clean, but you can do whatever you want. And I'll go ahead and fill in these columns versus rows. I'll click insert. It'll ask me where do I want to create the table for my data, and I just give it a cell that I want it to drop into. It'll bring in my parameters. It'll bring in my formula, and you can see the table where my data is going to go as soon as I execute that formula. Now that I've got it set here, I guess I had autofit turned on, so that's a big field. I can see all those different values here, and if I want to, rerun with a different option, I could do that. Maybe I say, let's go out a little later in 2016. We'll go ahead and refresh and rerun, and we can go get different values. Again, I got to turn that auto fit off, but now I can see the totals at the, if I want to see totals at the bottom, I can do that through the table, or I can bring in a summary formula to capture that information. Lots of flexibility, again, to capture whatever fields you want. We do have quite a lot ready to go, so you can use any of these options as a starting point and configure them to meet your needs. Now, I want to just talk for a minute about our automated distribution function as well. The automated distribution, you can see up here in my ribbon, allows you to set up a control sheet, a distribution control sheet in any Excel workbook. So I can start by saying, let's go ahead and create a control sheet. It allows me to put a name in there. I'll just accept the default. And it creates my distribution control sheet where I can start defining exactly what I want to send out to whom and how. I can start by saying, how do I want to send this? Do I want to send out to a file folder? If so, I give it a name and pick a location, which will take me to all of the different files that I have access to. Do I want to email it? If I do, I just have to fill in the email section after I get my worksheets defined. And then lastly, I can print. So I'll use the email as an option. I'm going to choose Excel, but I also have PDF, CSV, Word, other options if I need them. And then as I come into my specify worksheets, I identify which worksheets I want to send. So I'm going to send the income statement to Sierra, and maybe I'll also send the rolling 12 dashboard. Now I'm going to set on that income statement her division code so that she gets just her division and not everything. And I just simply reference the cell where the division code is. So you can see it's in J17 there. It brought that right in. I'll say division 20 is what Sierra was working with. Jump back to my control sheet. And now you see is when I selected the type of email, my email tab opened up. So I come in here and I fill in Sierra's email. Whoops, I want my semicolon there. And I'll just define this real quick. Updated reports, keep it short and sweet. And I click push to insert that as a distribution line in my workbook. Now I can copy and paste this and go send it to other folks. So I could say, let's go send this to my coworker, Tim. He's got a different division, so I will give him his division instead. And I might also send to one more person, just choosing some of my coworkers here, and she can see everything. So I'm going to take that restriction out. Excuse me. So what this is saying is that when I'm ready, I'm going to send Sierra, Tim, and Sherry emails. They will have an Excel workbook attached with two worksheets in that, or two tabs in that workbook, income statement and the rolling 12. Both Sierra and Tim have restrictions on those based on their division code. And then column F determines whether or not they're going to be able to leverage that data through refreshing and drilling down. I've got it set to default into spreadsheet server formula conversion. And what that means is that Sierra is going to get a static report. She will not be able to refresh and drill down because of that setting. Now, Tim, I know he has a license of spreadsheet server and I want him to be able to refresh and drill down. So in that case, I set this to no conversion. He will be able to keep that report, change parameters, refresh, drill down, expand, collapse, all of that because he does have a license of spreadsheet server. And I'm going to do the same thing for Sherry because she's in the controller's office. She needs access to that information. Now I save this with my workbook. Whenever I'm ready to distribute, I click this distribute button and I can send them all out or specific lines. There's also an automated scheduler that comes along with this. So we've got lots of flexibility as to how we send this and what information sends, how frequently we send it. And again, different options here for file types as well as destination types. I think that covers all of the functionality. I guess we can open it up to any questions. Is there anything that has come up? If not, we can take those offline and return, any questions that come up.
No questions.
Awesome. Okay, well, then I will stop sharing And turn on over to you, Erica.